Hello all YouTubers, I'm the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning back into this weather presentation and tropical storm Cristobal discussion for June 6, 2020. Before I get on with today's video, however, I would ask that you please do subscribe because sadly, tons of my watch time has been coming from unsubscribed viewers. We are on our way to our next goal of 600 subscribers, and thank you guys so much, by the way, for 500 subscribers. Let's get to our next goal of 600 subscribers, alright? So please do subscribe, and also, this applies to every single one of you, please watch the whole video as well as liking and sharing the video. Thank you. Now let's get on with today's video. Now today we're going to be tracking Tropical Storm Cristobal, but before I start with today's video, if you haven't already, please check out my another tropical disturbance video on the top right corner of your screen. Yes, there is another tropical disturbance that could become a subtropical storm. We're going to have to see. Development chances are a little low, but we'll have to see. So check that video out after this video. Depending on when you watch this, it may not be out yet, but it will be coming out very soon. Alright, so let's get started. So this is the alert for Tropical Storm Cristobal, and you can see much of south central Louisiana, eastern Louisiana through southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, all the way to Pensacola. We are under tropical storm warnings now as of 5 o'clock Eastern time. All right, so this is from New Iberia, New Orleans, Grand Isle, Biloxi, Mobile, Pensacola, and a lot of the Weather Channel special coverage is stationed there. So in this region, so tropical storm warnings are now in effect, which means tropical storm conditions will be likely within 36 hours, meaning some rainfall, heavy rainfall, winds past 39 miles per hour, and just some very dangerous conditions, even a little bit of surge. And why is, I'm going to be discussing later why the storm surge could be like greater with this storm than we usually see, because you'll see the storm surge values later, and they're shockingly high. Alright, so let's take a look, I mean, at least for a tropical storm anyway. But let's take a look at the storm. Here it is, and here's your wind field, and you can see it's pretty large, right? That's your orange is where all the wind of tropical storm force are. So it's pretty large system. It's got some large field of tropical storm force winds of 39 miles per hour plus. Moving to the north, you'll see the exact strength. Like, I know it just says S storm or depression, but you'll be able to see the exact strength. I'll show you that as well. And then it moves up after it makes landfall in Louisiana, as said by the National Hurricane Center so far. It moves up through Arkansas, moves up through Missouri, and then eventually there through the UP and Michigan as a post-tropical depression. Now, keep in mind that because there will be some wind shear coming west to east, alright, so there will be some wind shear tearing the storm apart a little bit. That doesn't decrease the moisture. The dry air decreases the moisture. What the wind shear does is it really disorganizes the storm. So the wind shear is going to cause a lot of the rain to be on the east side of that storm. So even though the storm may make landfall in Louisiana, and it will still have some rain bands associated with it, there will be a huge spot of rainfall over here into Florida, Georgia. So there will be a huge swath of rainfall still that'll be moving in through Florida, and it's already moving through now, actually. Alright, so let's take a look. I believe the next map is the exact strength. Actually, here is the wind probabilities. And now we're almost certain that we're going to have tropical storm force winds for southeastern Louisiana. There's even a decent chance, 20% chance, all the way through, all the way inland into Arkansas, central Mississippi, northern Louisiana. There is a decent chance, 30, 40% chance that we could see tropical storm force winds of 39 miles per hour plus. In terms of the storm surge alerts, we have storm surge watches for south central Louisiana and storm surge warnings for the eastern Louisiana coastline, as well as Gulfport to Biloxi there in southern Mississippi. And I believe there are no surge alerts yet for Florida, but we still could see some surge. Now, in terms of the values, now these aren't the storm surge values necessarily, all right, but it does give you a general idea. Any of these blue areas means wind shear can get a foot above ground. Alright, so, but it could be more than that as well. I mean, Mobile, we could see more than a foot of surge here, which is above dry ground, mind you. And the Big Bend of Florida could even see greater than 3 feet of surge. Now let's look at the peak surge. I believe that's what's next, yeah. And this is what I was talking about. So, peak surge means that this will be the storm surge if the onshore flow, the strongest onshore flow, comes at high tide. It has to come at high tide, because otherwise because if the onshore flow would come at low tide, that would be good, because not as much water would flow in. But sadly, this might come at a pretty bad time for some people. Now, in terms of eastern, and this is what would be the probably the worst impact area in terms of surge will probably be eastern Louisiana and then the southern coast of Mississippi, where we could see peak surge values of 3 to 5 feet. I mean, just imagine you're sitting on the coast, right, and you got 3 to 5 feet of water just coming in from the ocean. Keep in mind, this is above dry ground. Just 3 to 5 feet of water just streaming. And keep in mind, this won't be the fastest moving storm either, so we're going to have up to 8 to 10 inches of rainfall. All right, most likely about 5 to 8 inches in some spots, and probably in the same region, eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi. You could see 5 to 8 inches of rainfall, and possibly even more than that. But even outside of that, south central Louisiana could see 2 to 4 feet of surge, and 1 to 3 feet of surge will extend from Mobile Bay down the Florida Panhandle, through the Big Bend, Appalachia Bay, all the way down the western coast of Florida, down to Marco Island. All those areas could even see 1 to 3 feet of surge. So that's a lot of storm surge. Now, in terms of the flooding, all right, flooding risk will be moderate. All right, so if you look eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, right there, moderate flash flood risk, and even extends well inland actually into Missouri. All right, up past Arkansas into Missouri. So a lot of flash flooding, and the risk could be very, very high potentially. So this is why we really need to watch out, because rainfall and storm surge are just 2 deadly factors within tropical cyclone. Other deadly factors, all right, because this has happened, tornadoes can actually spin off of these tropical storms, and tropical storms is very common that tornadoes can actually spin off. Let me actually just, it's getting a little dark. But tornadoes, what happens is they can actually spin off. So we actually had a slight risk for severe weather today through the Panhandle of Florida. We had a couple tornado warnings actually popping up. And usually, because when the storms are rotating in, because you have to remember the tropical cyclone is spinning, so these storms are already rotating. Not to mention, we have changing of the winds with height. Like, let's say winds are coming out of the surface here, and winds come out of the 5,000 feet here. And because the winds are changing directions with height, the storms are already rotating because of the tropical cyclone. It just set the perfect atmosphere, and storms are rotating. And usually, tornadoes that spin off of tropical cyclones, usually around EF0 to EF1 strength, maybe winds of about 90 miles an hour or so, which can still do a lot of damage, right? But, however, right, usually they don't get that strong. Right? Possibly EF2, I don't know if EF3 has happened, but usually they're weak, they're short-lived, but still, always, if there's a tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning, just take your necessary precautions. Now, rainfall potential, keep in mind this is additional. All right, this is valid 8 o'clock Eastern Time today through, or 8 p.m. Eastern Time today through 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday the 11th. And just notice, this thing's going to leave a deadly track of heavy rainfall. First of all, parts of northeastern Florida, widespread up through Arkansas, southern Mississippi, eastern Louisiana, southern Alabama, 4 to 6 inches. Embedded within that, we have a couple little bands in the Florida Panhandle, but mostly it's going to be like New Orleans and Biloxi, Mississippi. We can see 6 to 10 inches of rainfall, and that's in that orange. But the yellow is widespread, and then the majority of the region are right here in this dark green shading, which represents 2 to 4 inches. All right, is a lot of rainfall. All right, 2 to 4 inches is a lot. All right, if anybody here is shading any kind of green or any kind of color, that means you're going to be seeing at least an inch of rainfall. And once it moves inland, it's going to start to pick up a lot of speed. So the fact that we could still see, 2 to 4 inches of rainfall well inland after it's a post-tropical depression, it's going to leave a deadly track of heavy rainfall and some river flooding. And some of these areas have been wet already, so that's not going to help matters very much at all. Life-threatening storm surge is possible with Cristobal. Get outside of that damage risk reduction system. All right, from the mouth of the Mississippi River, obviously after Katrina, obviously they've been putting a little bit more protection. And since Katrina, New Orleans hasn't had a major storm. Now, this doesn't really count as a major hurricane, obviously it's a tropical storm, but still needs to be taken seriously. Now, tropical storm force winds are expected late tonight along the northern Gulf Coast in central Louisiana, all the way to the western Florida Panhandle, because the storm is very large, right? It's got a massive wind field here. All right, so this includes New Orleans, and again, a tropical storm warning is in effect, and heavy rainfall will continue to spread across West Florida, as well as parts of northern Florida, and even down the Panhandle. We had some heavy rain, some severe thunderstorm warnings, some tornado warnings, and in the smaller creeks and streams, and even some of the bigger rivers at times, you can see some heavy rainfall and some that could cause the river flooding. Now, let's take a look at the current radar here. I don't know if it's probably the latest. Yeah, here we go. All right, so the current radar here, you can see some heavy rain that is just moving through Tampa now. But I want you to take a look at this. This is where the center of Cristobal is. Take a look at this wind field. It is massive. Like, if I had to guess by that, I'd estimate about 100 to at least 200 miles from the diameter from the left of the orange circle to the right there. I'd say about a couple hundred miles in diameter as an estimated guess. But I remember because the Weather Channel was actually saying how the storm, like if you went from the left end of the storm all the way to the right end, it was like about 500 or 600 miles in diameter. So that is a very large storm. And I mean, we got energy spinning up all the way in. Even Texas is helping to fire up a few storms in Texas. That might be separate though. But we got some rain bands moving through central Louisiana, southern Mississippi, all the way up through Georgia. All right, this storm is very, very massive. It's going to produce, I mean, as it will produce a lot of rainfall, and as it moves inland, it will slow down a little bit. But once it or close to that landfall, but once it makes landfall, it should start to pick up some speed. But keep in mind, all right, we're already starting to see some surge now. All right, we're starting to see that winds coming out of the east, more east direction as opposed to a northeast direction. So this was the wind flow earlier today. Now it's starting to turn a little bit more, this way. But keep in mind, even after this makes landfall and it becomes a low pressure up here, you're still going to have storm surge pushing in. Even though the winds won't be nearly as strong, we're still going to have an onshore push, and that could be very deadly. Now, Tropical Storm Cristobal is currently sitting with winds at 50 miles per hour. Again, there's your center. There's your large wind field. It will be strengthening Sunday early morning. We could see winds of 60 miles per hour. When it makes landfall, could it get to 65? Could it get to 70? I'd say not. Because as soon as it moves inland, it's already down to 45 mile per hour wind. So I'd say it's going to make landfall. My prediction is making landfall with about 60 to 65 mile per hour sustained winds. And then once it makes landfall, it's going to start to pick up speed Monday early morning, and then 24 hours later. All right, and then 12 hours later, and then 12 hours later. So it will be moving inland. All right, it will be weakening to a depression by the time it moves up to Louisiana. By the time it moves into Arkansas, it'll most likely be a tropical depression. Then once it leaves Arkansas, heads into Missouri, probably be a post-tropical depression, meaning even more disorganized, even more weak. But it will latch over to cold front, potentially, so we could see some more energy spiraled off of that. So that's something we're going to have to watch for as well. Again, here's your tropical storm warnings. That's not a watch anymore. That's kind of old. But you see this. This is your warning region right here. And again, here's Cristobal moving inland, possibly a little bend to the left, which is why parts of more south-central Louisiana are now included in that threat as well. And here's your wind. Here's your threat of winds of tropical storm force. I mean, anywhere shaded in that yellow region has the possibility to see winds of greater than 40 miles per hour. And we talk about south, whether it's 10% chance or 100 or 90% chance, this is where you have your threat from south central Arkansas down through Louisiana, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama. There's your threat for tropical storm force winds. Now, Gulf of Mexico, keep in mind, we are running still. When you average out, we're talking about the entire Gulf of Mexico, not just one specific spot. The Gulf of Mexico in general is 0.2 degrees above average. So Gulf of Mexico, to some extent, is a little bit warmer, and that's probably due to the western part is pretty warm. And then the eastern part's, pretty much average, a little cool spot behind. Because in the wake of Cristobal, we actually had a little bit, the waters have actually cooled down a little bit in the Bay of Campeche. So we're sort of now a little bit below average as opposed to above average. The Cristobal, I believe, is, if I'd have to go back, if I go back to the National Hurricane Center, I'd have to go to see what the exact coordinates are. Let me go back and see the coordinates. I remember I was looking at it, but I forget. So it's at 25 degrees north. Let's look at the latitudes here, longitude. So it's 25 degrees north latitude and 90 degrees west longitude. All right. So if you look at that on the ocean temperature map, 25 and then kind of staying towards 90. So let's go down a little bit, guys. And 25. So I'd say it's right about here. So it's seeing a little bit of a mix right now in terms of the ocean temperature anomalies. Actually, I'd say it's a little bit more farther south than that. Yeah, it's the storm center is like right in here. It's right in that average spot. So just to the east of it, we have a tad bit cooler than average waters, and to the west of it, we have some more above average waters. So this storm can start to generate a little bit more activity on the western side, possibly. I mean, again, this is going to be very eastern loaded. All the activity will be to the east of the storm. But since the water is a little bit above average to the west of the storm, possibly we could see another rain band fire up here. And in terms of the actual ocean temperatures, all right, so where the storm is sitting, so about 90 and then 20. So we're sitting at about 28 degrees Celsius waters, which is about 82 or so. So, I mean, it's pretty favorable. Not the best conditions. I consider we have some dry air now and a decent amount of shear. This storm has still managed to strengthen a decent amount here. So, some we're going to keep our eyes on. And now let's get into some modeling. All right, so here is the NAM3 cam model. Now that we're farther, now we're closer to the storm's landfall and its progress inland. We're closer to that time period. We can start looking at the NAM models because they're more high definition, more accurate, and they actually skip by intervals of 1 hour as opposed to the GFS and all the global models are 6 hours. So it's a little bit better to look at. When you look at in terms of the rainfall, we have some very heavy rainfall that'll be spinning around the cyclone that is spinning right here. And we're still going to have some pretty heavy rainfall well to the east of that storm because, like I said, this thing's going to be eastern loaded due to the wind shear kind of blowing the cloud tops off to the right a little bit. All right, so there's your pressure staying at 992 millibars. So it's a decently strong low pressure system. Strong tropical storm again is likely. And then as it moves inland, it's starting to slow down a little bit. Some very heavy rain coming right there into New Orleans as the low starts to come on shore. And there's your low pressure. And then starts to lose its eastern low, so it becomes a little bit more organized. The precipitation actually starts to, actually center around the storm. Not all the precipitation's over here at this point, as opposed to before. All right. And then eventually, this will move inland. And take a look at this. I mean, this just becomes completely organized as it moves inland, actually, which is pretty ironic. It's actually starting, I mean, it looks very healthy at this point. All right, looks eastern loaded here. It's got a decent center. It's starting to lose it because it's going inland. All right, but it becomes a little bit more organized because as it moves inland, it might start to lose a little bit of shear, which is good for the tropical cyclone. All right, and then, again, it continues its terrain on inland and very heavy rainfall for the Arclotex, moving through the Arclotex, maybe another band of rain moving through Louisiana there. All right, and that is your NAM 3KM model. Now, we take a look at the precipitation, but before I do, I want to take a look at the surface winds, because how strong could the surface winds get? Well, according to the NAM model, like I said with that heavy band of rain before coming right into New Orleans, remember I said that just earlier? That little purple zone, we could see winds of 50 to 52 knots, which is about 58 to past 60 miles an hour. So NAM model is calling for about 60-mile-an-hour winds, and remember, these are just sustained surface winds. Gusts will get to 70 and possibly 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So we could see wind gusts to hurricane force. And if that happens, the storm surge will increase. Because obviously the stronger the wind, pretty much the stronger the wind shear. Or stronger the storm surge, excuse me. But it also depends on how long is the storm sitting there. Is it just going to zip in and zip out? Is it going to stay there for a while? All factors here. But anywhere in that green region, moving inland eventually, are winds of 20 knots, which are 25 miles per hour or greater. And then that storm eventually moves inland, carrying with it some of its 25, 30-mile-per-hour winds inland. Pressure still low at 991 millibars, even though the winds may not be that high as it moves inland. Now, in terms of precipitation, total precipitation, honestly, it doesn't count because it only goes out 60 hours, so trust me, Missouri, you'll get it, but this doesn't go out quite far enough yet. But we can get a read on the rainfall down farther south. So northern Louisiana could see 6 to 8 inches, even 6 to 10 inches for just west of New Orleans there. Northeastern Florida could see another, and this is an additional, by the way, 2 to 3 inches possibly, just near Orlando. Maybe another few inches of rainfall for you guys. You can just see this looks very circular and just kind of artistic, kind of. It's like someone just took a paintbrush and just started swirling on there. But NAM model is a very high def model. It can be trusted. Sometimes it goes a little bit overboard. It very rarely goes a little bit underboard with the totals, whether it's rain or snow. But we could see a couple inches across much of the southern Georgia and the Florida, and we could see 6 to 10 inches even of rainfall for parts of Louisiana. So one of the hardest hit states here are going to be Louisiana and Mississippi. Now, NAM 12K model, pretty much the same high def, but I like it because it goes farther out in time here. It goes to 84 hours as opposed to 60. And here's your heavy band. Both NAM models indicating a very heavy band of rain that will circle around the storm and head right for New Orleans. And if that happens, New Orleans could see a boost in the rainfall totals here. All right, so let's move this in, and then a second or possibly even third band of rain comes right there into New Orleans. This could be sitting here and spiraling the bands over the same areas. And keep in mind, when you're talking about a tropical cyclone moving at 20 miles per hour, we might be thinking, well, when I track, like you might be thinking, someone might be thinking, when I track severe weather here, and I see a storm moving at, about 50, 60 miles per hour, I mean, that's pretty fast, but that's usually what I expect in a severe storm. Well, you're right. I mean, usually they do move pretty fast. Sometimes they move slow, however, but sometimes they do move pretty fast. But for a tropical cyclone, if it moves at 20 miles an hour, that's pretty fast. This is moving at about 12 miles an hour, which is pretty much the average speed. About 10, 12 miles an hour. 15 is a little fast for it. It is actually pretty fast for a cyclone. And once it comes inland, actually, the precipitation will actually start to get around the center. Like I said before, it won't be all, it won't be all the way, out here in the Georgia and Florida. The precipitation will actually be centered around the low pressure system. And then it just moves up into Missouri and out of sight completely. Now, cyclonic vorticities. Yeah, I haven't forgot about this, have I? All right, so this storm is going to come on shore and just produce some very heavy cyclonic vorticity values for south central Louisiana, eventually southern Mississippi as well. All right, so some pretty dangerous stuff. And then look at this; it doesn't lose much of its energy. Don't let your guard down, because it's still going to keep a decent amount of its energy. So some dark reds here. I don't think it's going to lose much of its energy. We can see easily a wind gust past 40 miles an hour. Even though the sustained winds will only be about 25, 30 miles per hour. All right, so won't lose much of its energy, which is bad, and we can see some more wind and rain. All right, but then eventually, the good news is for places like northern Arkansas and Missouri, and then, by the way, there comes a cold front, but good news for you guys up there to the north that by the time it gets to you, it'll be moving a little bit faster. Now, in terms of the surface winds, NAM 12K obviously not being quite as high def as the NAM 3K, not quite as detailed, not going to show quite as much as they did, but still 40 to 45 knots, which is about 50 mile an hour winds, which is still pretty impressive. And like I said, we can easily see a gust higher than that, possibly 65 miles an hour, but that's just one model. Now, rainfall, about, again, 6 to 8 inches or so for right there in eastern Louisiana, so a decent, and even southern Mississippi, which is a decent amount of rainfall. It's very heavy. Good thing is, we're in a drought, but still, never good to have rainfall in a short amount of time, no matter how much of a drought you're in. Now, shipside NOSID message, like I said, at least according to this, hurricanes.rail.ucar.edu here, looks like the wind shear is low right now, only a few knots or so, and then it could go up a little bit, all right, over the next 2 days, but like I said, that'll be on land by then, so don't think about to worry about that necessarily. Ocean temperatures, again, maintaining 80 degrees for the whole time up until it makes landfall. It's going to maintain 80 to 82 degree waters, which is good for the storm. Heat content is at its highest now. I think we're going to lose it because as it moves on land, we're going to start to lose that heat content, and as it moves on land. And storm speed about 9 knots right now, which is about 11 miles an hour or so. Eventually, speeding up to a wonderful 32 knots, which is about, that's not 40 actually, because that's 34 knots. The storm could be moving at about 38 miles per hour, which is zoom. That's like Formula One for a tropical cyclone there. So that's gonna be very fast. I've actually seen, I think the record I've seen, at least since I've been for a few years tracking the weather and like tracking tropical systems, and when I think I saw one time, I'm pretty sure I saw it was either anywhere from 50 to 75 miles an hour, because the storm was getting locked up in the cold front and it was moving very fast. It was moving out of New England. I think it was like a subtropical, like an extratropical cyclone, moving at about 50 to 75 miles per hour. That's how fast the storm was moving. So that was a very fast moving storm. So you get precipitation for like 10 minutes and like you're done. Pretty cool. Anyway, in terms of the current low position, let's give this a little refresh, and not much has changed here. That's your low pressure. That's where it's marked. Obviously, again, 90 degrees west, maybe 90.5 degrees west longitude, and about 25 degrees north latitude. All right, so let's take a look at our storm tracks now. And I'm happy to report that all models actually agree with each other. And that is very well true, actually. All right, so all the models agree with each other, making a landfall right there in eastern Louisiana, moving up through central Arkansas, through Missouri, and then moving up through the upper Midwest. All the models actually agree with each other for once. There's usually always that one, model that always wants to go whoop, like to the side here or up to here. But models actually do agree with each other, because obviously we're about 20, according to these models at least, the track guidance, we're about 24 to 28 hours before landfall. Probably about tomorrow evening, you'll probably be making landfall. We'll be slowing down a little bit, again, which can increase that rainfall threat. Now, pressure, now according to the GEFS tracks, excuse me, guys. So, pressure, 994 millibars now, but it could actually be strengthening. Obviously, when we're talking about strengthening, this is just a regular low pressure strengthening at this point up through the upper Midwest, because it won't be a tropical storm strengthening. This is just because sometimes regular low pressure systems can strengthen over land, but it will be losing all of its tropical characteristics, will be gone by this point. Strengthened to 977 millibars maybe, as it moves through the upper Midwest, so maybe a very big wind maker for parts of the northern plains. Got to watch that. And then it'll start to weaken as it moves through Canada. It'll weaken dramatically, actually, to 1,000 millibars by that point. Now, GEPS tries kind of shows a similar story here. 997 millibars of pressure, then drops to 988. Then it goes back up to 996 again as it leaves the upper Midwest. So watch out. Wisconsin, Michigan, any viewers from there? I believe I do know there are at least a couple viewers I know from about Wisconsin, the upper Midwest, that could see a big wind maker, as it moves up. And again, widespread, as you saw from that National Hurricane Center map here, widespread. Okay, I gotta find it here, guys. Widespread here, 2 to 4 inches of rainfall in parts of the upper Midwest, and possibly some wind as well. Now, in terms of the intensity guidance, again, 24 hours, once it makes landfall, it drops. Okay, so it's going to be below tropical storm status. Some models do keep it in tropical storm status, but I mean, that's what you call extratropical. Even though it will have winds of tropical storm force, it will be extratropical, so that's why some of these models are counting. But in terms of the track, all the models actually do agree. And I'm finishing off here with some hurricane reconnaissance data. All right, that is the latest. And they did find some winds to the south of the center of about 50 to 55 knots, which is roughly 58 to 63 miles an hour. So the next update from the National Hurricane Center could result in a 55-mile-an-hour sustained winds, because also in the last update they had 994 millibars of pressure. In this loop right here, in this flight, they actually found 993 millibars of pressure. So that is interesting, something to watch. Hopefully I'll be able to track the storm as it makes its way onshore, and it's going to be very exciting. So stay tuned. Thank you guys. Don't forget to check out my other videos. Thank you guys for watching. I am the Weather Dude, signing off till next time. Thank you guys for watching.